This is Thomas-Louis Côté from Quebec BD, and you're listening to the True North Country Comic Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Thomas-Louis Côté about the Art of the Comic Strip, Quebec-style exhibit. Based in Quebec, Thomas-Louis Côté has been the director of Quebec BD since 2005. In 2022, he was appointed to the rank of Chevalier in the Ordre des Arts et des Lettres, one of the main distinctions among the four ministerial orders of the French Republic. Over the years, in addition to developing a host of projects in Quebec City, he has participated in the realization and implementation of several collaborations at the national and international level, contributing to the influence of comics and its craftsmen. His actions have been recognized by the Conseil de la Culture des régions de Québec in 2013 and le Prix de l'Institut Canadien in 2017, together with Quebec BD. In collaboration with the General Delegation of Quebec in Brussels, the exhibition The Art of Comic Strip, Quebec Style, is currently available until June 2027, when visitors attend the Brussels Comic Strip Museum in Belgium. Through work selected by curator Thomas-Louis Côté from nearly 100 creators, including Michel Rabliati, Denis Rodier, Julie Doucette, and many others, hailing from across Quebec, the exhibition invites the public to discover the many stages of creating a comic, the variety of narrative and graphic approaches, and the diversity of styles that make up this ever-evolving medium. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Thomas-Louis Côté about the Art of the Comic Strip, Quebec-style exhibit. So, Thomas-Louis Côté, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
My pleasure.
I appreciate your time. Before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
Well, I started off with mostly European comics, so it would be Tintin in English, or Spirou, which were the first comics that I read and that my parents gave me.
Yeah, very popular books. A lot of creators have mentioned that, along with
Yeah,
Asterix and Obelix as well. Those are also very famous, for sure.
classics.
Yes, yes. So we're talking today about a special exhibit that you curated. But before we get going with that news, what if you could talk a little bit about your role? What do you do?
Well, I'm the director of an organization based in Quebec City called Quebec BD. Quebec BD organizes a festival in April, which is the oldest of its kind in Canada. It's been going on for 40 years now, so it's a long-running event. Our organizations also have projects all year round, being projects in Quebec or Quebec province, or also abroad. So I've worked a lot with other events in France and Belgium mostly, but also in Asia, South America, and different places. So I've been quite busy promoting comics all around. And since last year, also, we've had the Maison de la BD, which is the House of Comics in Quebec City, which is the first venue of its kind, which is an exhibit center based on comics. So we have a year-round program of activities with exhibits, but also workshops and different events throughout the year. So that's now one of the big projects of Quebec BD because as it's running year-round, there's always something to do.
That's exciting for sure. Many of the listeners to this podcast will know we've reported on the Montreal Comic Arts Festival, which also showcases a lot of artists from not only Quebec, but all over the world, which is quite tremendous. So it's definitely a lot of talent there, I guess you could say, in Quebec.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're a different kind of event in a sense that the Montreal Comics Art Festival is on Saint Denis Street, so it's all the festival is on one venue. We work with different venues, being museum, public libraries, and also the Quebec Book Fair. Last year, we were in around 25 different venues all around town with exhibits and different activities, also performances. So we have lots of activity. So we're complementary events, if you will. We're doing two different kinds of stuff, but always with the aiming at promoting comics.
Exciting stuff, that's for sure. So we're talking about a special exhibit today that you curated, something that is taking place in Belgium based on Quebec
Yeah.
comic art. Wonder if you could talk a little bit more about this exhibit. What is it all about?
The Belgium Comic Art Center has a permanent exhibit called the Art of Comic Strip, which is an exhibit in which they present all the steps to making comics, being from the writing the stories to all the way to publishing it. So it showcases really through the artwork of different artists, different steps to making comics, but also the different types of comics, like youth comics, most documentary comics, more manga, different stuff. So a lot of things that are presented to have the numerous visitors of the Comic Art Center know a bit more about how authors work. We had a chance to do the 11th version, which what just opened.
Ah, very good, very good. So, just in practical terms, what can attendees expect when they go there in terms of the exhibit? Can you describe some of the displays, what they'll see?
Yeah, well, the exhibit starts with 7 different steps of making comics. As I was mentioning, starting off with the writing the story. We're showcasing original scripts from authors with the panel that's referenced through that story. So that's a way to see how authors work together with a writer and somebody who draws. But we also show people who write their own stories. So the different types of situations. There's also research and sketches. So to see how authors prepare to make the panels and find out how to place the different speech bubbles and different things like that, checking out the best ambiance for their panels. So for us, that's a really interesting thing because it's steps that people don't usually see, being that lots of authors don't keep them. So it's something that's not always easy to see. And also, once some authors go to inking, they erase it. So we were able to get some really nice examples of that step in comics. And then we have inking being doing with brush and pen or with digital drawing. So different ways of doing inking and then coloring and even, as I mentioned, the art of the covers and how publisher work to prepare the comics and print them. So that's kind of the start of the exhibit is going to be really step by step how comics are made. There's also little presentation on the history of Quebec comics, the influence of magazines in comics, because a lot of comics were published in magazines or newspapers way before being published in hardcover albums. And there's also self-published artists. So we have different kind of capsules, if you will, of those subjects. And then really a diversity of other artists, being like youth comics. We have a section for that. We also have a section for wordless comics, another one for authors who played with the codes of comics in their creations. So they're really different types of artwork, and mostly it's original artwork or reproductions if it was not available. We have to know that now that a lot of artists work in digital comics, so it's sometimes hard to have original artwork, but we have really nice reproductions of their work.
Wow, that's tremendous. I mean, that would get me excited to get on a plane right now to go check it out. That is tremendous. Can you talk a little bit about the artists themselves? Whose art is placed there in the exhibit?
Yeah, we have around 100 artists showcased, being writers, illustrators, or authors that do both. So, well-known authors from Quebec, like Michel Rabaglietti, Juliette Doucet, or more alternative authors like Henriette Valium, for example, but also newcomers or artists that are less known to the public in Europe. Because as for English Canadian comics, it's not everybody that gets seen outside of the country. So it's interesting for us to put them forward in this exhibit.
Now, here's the million-dollar question. How did you decide on picking just about 100 creators from all the many that exist in Quebec? How did you do that?
Well, I started off with what I needed, actually, seeing how the exhibit was built, because I decided on some parts of the exhibit, but the step-by-step section is something that I had to work with. So I really tried to see who I could get artwork from that would fit what I wanted to tell. So true, I had to make a lot of choices, but knowing a lot of people in the comic industry, I had a good time trying to find the artwork, but also I wanted to have a variety in styles, a variety in publishers. Also tried to get the equivalent number of female artists to male artists. So it's a different things that kind of narrowed down the choices sometimes.
It sounds like it was a difficult choice, but you made it happen. So the press release for the exhibit mentions the International Ninth Art. Can you explain that term to me? I've never heard of it before.
The ninth art, actually, there is a classification of arts, and the comic is the ninth one. Seventh one would be cinema and movie. Fourth one would be music. Third one would be painting. First one would be sculpture. So different type of classification of arts. So we do use the term in French, le neuvième art, so that we don't always use bande dessinée or BD as you would in comics. It's just to make sure that we don't always use the same words.
Ah, very good. Okay, well, thanks for explaining that. At the time of this recording, our recent Canada Day festivities saw Michel Margliati receive the Order of Canada Award from the Governor General. I want to get your impressions on that. What did you think of that award?
Well, I thought it was a really great honor for him. He's been blessed to have been recognized by the Quebec government, by the French government, and now the Canadian government. So it's really for him great honors to receive, but also for comics in general. It's really nice to have some representatives that are in the same levels as other well-known artists in other fields, because sometimes we're the fun cousin to have, but we're not always put forward. So for him to get these honors is, I guess, will shine on the comic creators a lot more than if we didn't have anybody recognized by those honors.
That's true. And when that happened, I said, I know that guy. To the people around the family room, because I remember I was at the Montreal Comic Arts Festival and Michel was there and he was like a rock star. There were lineups literally around the block to get him to sign his comic books and graphic novels. So definitely tremendous thing.
No, he deserves it a lot. Yes, for sure.
So we've been talking about this comic art exhibit that's taking place in Belgium. Can you talk about what your next big project is that you're working on?
At the moment, we're working on our 40th festival, which is going to be a big step. That's happening in April. There's also, as I mentioned, the Maison de la BD, which has activities all year round. So we're moving around the exhibits now. So it's something that takes time. But there are some projects going abroad, again, to see the exhibit in Belgium, which I haven't seen in real life for the moment. I've designed it and I saw photos, but I'm looking forward to see it in person. And I always bring authors when I travel to have activities and workshops and different things. So we're going to try to make an event out of going there. There's also something happening in Tokyo at the end of the year. So lots of things on my plate.
Sounds like you're going to be busy. Where can people find out more information about not only Quebec comic art, but also this exhibit in Belgium?
Well, if you wanted to know more about our organization, you can go on our website, which is quebecbd.com. And for the exhibit in Brussels, the information is going to be on the website of the Brussels Comic Arts Center. So that would be the place to get most of the info.
Very good. Well, Thomas-Louis, that is it for questions. I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
Well, an exhibit like this for us is really interesting because Brussels Comic Art Center gets around 250,000 visitors a year from everywhere. It's going to be a great showcase for Quebec comics on the international stage. But again, Quebec being part of Canada, I think it reflects on Canadian comics as well. And there are some English-speaking artists in the exhibit. So I tried to have everybody represented there. And I hope if your Canadian listeners travel to Brussels, they get a chance to visit the exhibit and for them to discover a bit more about Quebec comics. Because as you might seen in your previous interview, sometimes Canadian comics, we know there are tons of Canadian comics, but we don't know what's out there. And for English Canadian readers are not aware of what's happening in Quebec often, and readers in Quebec are not aware of what's going on in the rest of Canada. So it's interesting if there's opportunities like this to discover what's happening on the comic scenes from our different provinces.
Thanks to Thomas-Louis for the chat. You can discover more online at quebecbd.com and at the Brussels Comic Strip Museum website. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. so you can be notified about new interviews and articles about comic book creators. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media platforms, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.